farmers are starting to notice yields are dropping. We've actually got a higher population in this country than France now. But France has got 5 times the land mass. If we run out of food, it will run out way faster than they would. And we're an island. It is harder to get food here. You know, BlackRock have got 100 million quid on the table to buy UK farmland. It's like they're expecting problems.
Hi, my name's Emma Dunwell. Welcome to the Resistance Podcast, a special edition, as today we are in Exeter at the Goffinland Farms. And today I am with Justin. Would you like to introduce us and tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're here?
All right, I'm Justin. I'm also known as the Effing Farmer on social medias. I am a co-founder and put together Farmers to Action, which is a network to basically bring agriculture and farmers together, and also hopefully to unite the farming world with who we are here to feed and the rest of the public.
So what's your been reaction to I suppose you could call it an onslaught against farmers by the government?
It has, starting with IHT, which is the main thing, is what has brought our group together. It's an attack on food sovereignty. It's an attack on people's livelihoods. It's also an attack on the bigger picture, which is everyone perceives farmers as having a lot of money, and they don't. Farmers they have assets, but they are all ultimately cash poor. And a lot of this, you can get to the statistics of statistically, I also came across last night that barley or wheat price in particular, in 1985 was £119 a tonne to £138 a tonne.
All right.
In today's pricing, if it followed inflation, those prices should be looking at £320 to £360 a tonne. Farming and food in our industry hasn't followed inflation, and this is one of our biggest problems with having to pay something like IHT. It's not that we wouldn't. We would if we could earn the right amount of money, but we're not. We're kept down. We are dictated price by the supermarkets. We're the only industry in the world that is dictated price. We don't make our markups. Everyone else makes our markups. Any other industry going puts their markup of what they're making, goods or service. They are in charge of their pricing. We're not. We're dictated to. And because of this, things like IHT, national insurance, it hits hard. It hits really hard. And farmers now are getting to a point, they're at breaking point. We're at a point that we've literally been told, and this is effectively and unfortunately an act of war. If another country goes into another country to try and take land, that is an act of war by definition. And we're in this point that we've been told by government that we have to pay an inheritance tax, which is an indirect way of saying that they want 20 to 30% of our land. That is by definition an act of war. Now, not that anyone wants to do anything in a drastic way, but there's farmers and livelihoods, and at the same time, farms that have been handed down through generation. And a lot of things in the UK now have forgotten that beautiful thing of generational hand downs and keeping it going through generations, right? One of the best communities for that is like if you look at the Maori in New Zealand. And tradition is like a big thing, and in this country we've lost that. We've lost that in multiple ways. Not everywhere, but farming is something everyone looks at a farm that is, it's worth a lot of money. For a farmer, it doesn't. We don't look at it that way because it was passed to us. Therefore, by the way we look at it, we're no more than a caretaker for the next generation, and something is only valuable if you sell it. And if you think that farmers that are 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th generation, they don't have an intention of selling it. So they don't see the value in it. All they see is a government wants to strip and take away part of what they've been given the responsibility of looking after, yeah, to the next generation. And they're having that taken away from them. And there's a lot of farmers out there not happy about it.
There was the argument between the actual figures of how many farms that this would affect. I mean, there was an argument between the Treasury and DEFRA when it initially kicked off and when there started to be farmers' rallies.
Yeah.
And I'm struggling to remember the figures now off the top of my head, but the Treasury basically said that it will hardly affect any farms.
Yep.
But they didn't take into account small holdings at all. They didn't take into account diversified farms.
Yep.
Do you mind me asking what you farm?
Yeah. So how I got to this is through a very painful last 20 years of my farming life. We used to have 650 head of cattle, which was for beef, and we used to have 350 sheep, which we don't do anymore. And we don't do that anymore because at that time we couldn't make food pay, which is a really sad case of events. That something that everyone needs once, twice, or three times a day can't earn you a living. Like, there's three things everyone needs in life: food, water, and shelter. Outside that, everything else is just an extra. So we had to diversify, and now we do a small bit of beef, we do eggs, but we sell a lot of hay and straw for the equestrian market and pets.
Yeah.
And that's what we've gone down to. So we're trying to make more money now that way, feeding people's pets rather than feeding people, which is a bit of a sad case of events when you think what we should be doing is feeding people. But also there's many farmers having to diversify and do those things. I've diversified with my family over 20 years, and it has been a painful process. And after getting to that point, getting to a place that we think we're doing quite well, IHT's come along and said that we want 20 to 30% of your farm.
Wow.
It hits hard when you put all that effort and work in, to the point that myself and how I've got to this now is things in this country need to change, and it's way bigger than just agriculture. Mm-hmm. And if it doesn't change, and there's lots of farmers that I've spoken to recently, they're in the exactly same boat as me, and thinking the same, that if agriculture doesn't change, we all want to leave.
Yeah.
And that's where it's getting to. And this country used to be a great country, and at the moment, it's missing the great in Great Britain.
I mean, I was speaking to, I think it was Farmer Pete, actually, we were speaking to earlier, and he said that he'd actually earned more money, or it was someone that he knew, had earned more money growing and selling flowers than growing and selling food.
We are only producing, I think now, somewhere around about 63 or 64% of our food in-house.
Yes.
Which Farmer Pete, I think, has got even more specific.
I think he said that we now import 60% of our food.
Okay, so I'm wrong. I've got the other way around.
I think we import 60%, but that's 60%. Just embarrassing.
So we're importing that much food, and the great British public need to know the truth of what's going on out here. We are getting paid to grow trees. We are getting paid to grow wildflowers and things for insects and birds and cover crops. Headlands of fields, which are we're told to leave them and not grow any food on them. We've got the potential of growing unbelievable amounts of food if British farmers are allowed to do so. But the consensus of it is we can earn more by government to not. Why is a government paying us more money to not grow food for our population? And here's the bigger problem: is there's 68 million people in this country now. There's 68 million people just under us in France. We've actually got a higher population in this country than France now. But France has got 5 times the land mass. If we run out of food, it will run out way faster than they would. And we're an island. It is harder to get food here. And the likes of Gareth Wyn-Jones have been marching this and shouting this from the rooftops for a very long time. British food sovereignty is at an existential risk of having a catastrophic effect to our consumer, Because if there is slight food shortages, people will panic. And if people panic, it is not going to be a pretty sight. And none of us want to see this. But British farmers want to be allowed have loads of red tape taken off us, loads of rules, in order to basically just be left alone to produce food for our consumer. It's all we want to do. Everyone wants us to tarnish the British farmer with, oh, they're this, they're that, they're in the way. Snow, not a problem. Let us clear it. Trees in the way, not a problem. Let us clear it. We're quite happy here to help anyone. And I'm speaking on behalf of pretty much, I'm going to say 95%. I'm going to say, I'm sure there's some that's going to disagree with me. But we are happy to help people. Just let us. We're happy to grow more food. We are happy to work more hours, right? Average farmer, talking to someone again in the last 2 days, he worked out with his 85 hours that he works a week on his farm, right? With the profit he makes on his farm at the end of the year, he is on £2.38 an hour. And he is working and he subsidises his farm. And there's a lot of farmers that do this now. They are working second job in order to do what they're calling their most expensive hobby, which is farm food for people.
Wow.
So 85 hours a week is now a hobby. And on top of
what was it, £2.30?
£2.38 an hour, he worked out his yearly income from his farm is. That's why he has to do another business. The FTA website was built by two other farmers that are arable farmers that, in order to subsidise their farm, are also doing website design and things like that. So there's multiple farmers out there that are doing extra. Ourselves, diversified, we do contracting. We produce 250,000 bales of hay and straw a year for shops around the southwest. We have a team of four guys. And for myself, at the moment, everything's got a lot tighter. People aren't spending. We are heading towards a recession whether anyone can see it or not. I myself have had my wages halved in order to, keep things steady. So, but that's what we do. Like, when you care about a farm, it's hard to explain. When you care about a farm, it's like a member of the family, and it's been passed down. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Oh, it absolutely makes sense.
And I've got, well, she's in here somewhere. I've got a little girl, she's 7 months old. So that's my driving force now. I've got to do my part to keep it safe for her. If that makes sense?
Do you think that the obstacles that they've thrown at farmers, and I do try to ask this to everyone because I think it's such an important issue to tie into it, do you think that this is part of a wider agenda, possibly a globalist agenda?
Well, let's not beat around the bush. It is full of... If anyone hasn't read WEF 2030, right, which was supposed to be 2050 and they brought it forward.
Yeah.
Right? If you haven't read that yet, people need to wake up quick, right? Because it's on its way. And you can do something about it, or you can sit on the fence.
Yeah.
And those that sit on the fence are going to be scratching their heads later on.
Yeah.
There's many people that like to, call that some sort of form of conspiracy. Well, right this weekend, Davos is going on, where WEF meet up. It's happening right as we speak.
Yeah.
And they want to control food, they want to control finances, and control multiple other things, which, again, some people see as truth and some people think as conspiracy.
Yeah.
But lots of people are waking up, and they're waking up faster than they ever have before to everything that's going on. But it still comes back to, yes, there is something. If we look back to the beginning of 2024, there is a reason why 47 countries of farmers protested. That doesn't happen. Farmers don't want to protest.
Yeah.
Farmers don't want to go out. Farmers just want to be left alone. It's really that simple. We just want to be left alone to do our own thing, right? We're probably one of the most, basically the simplest way of putting it, because I can't think of the word, is we don't in-house get along that well.
Yeah.
Right? We all have different views of things. But this is something that has brought us together. And I've said it on camera before, like, I would honestly like to thank Keir Starmer. right? And it sounds stupid, but if he hadn't done this, he wouldn't have brought the agriculture community together.
Yeah.
And it's something that loads of us have tried to do for years, and it's been like banging your head against a wall. But now the agriculture community is all looking, singing from the same page that we're not very happy about what's going on, and things need to be done about it. And there's multiple groups out there trying. There's multiple groups trying in different ways. So, for the sake of our nation, food security, in my eyes, outranks any other political agenda that is being pushed upon people.
Where are we in terms of food security, do you think? Like, let's say if, World War III was to break out tomorrow and all of a sudden we only had ourselves to rely on, what kind of situation would we be in?
It's always been said we are 48 hours away from anarchy. If, like we discussed earlier, if there's 63% of our food is being imported into this country, right? If that stops at any moment of time, everyone needs to get used to the idea that they're going to be eating less than half of what they usually eat.
Yeah,
for a long period of time.
Difference.
And I say for a long period of time, it wouldn't be that much time, but you'd be talking a good 12 months, because it is a 12-month planting cycle, which takes farmers to get from a point to a point. Now, that could be smoothed over right now. If we could get up to, say, 80%, because there's things we can't grow here. We've got to be aware of that. Bananas, avocados, kiwis, can't grow that in our climate. Well, if we put up greenhouses, we might. More greenhouses, and that's all possible. But things need to be sorted a lot faster, in the sense we need, I would say, to be up in the 83, 85% of our food being homegrown. And another thing is, people have just been told about Bovier, which has been in the food for 3.5 years.
Yeah.
Right? No one's talking about Apeel yet. APEEL. It is a chemical on all fruit and veg that is exported or imported into the country. Right?
I'm not aware of this.
It was backed by Bill Gates.
Oh, shocker.
Right? It was backed by Bill Gates and funded by him. And it's a chemical that never went through the FDA.
Really?
So it's not tested to be safe. And if anyone out there thinks that they are safe with organic, they put together a Ganapeel, which is a slightly changed chemical.
Oh, right.
Right? Of the Apeel group.
Right.
Okay? There are multiple chemicals that are used in foreign countries that have been banned in Britain for the last 5 to 10 years. Sprays that are used on wheat, sprays that are used on barley, all the other seeds, fruits, veggies. Now, the reason food is cheap when it comes in is because none of those countries have to work to the guidelines that we have to work to. And if people want to know like a few other things, our food is at such a high level. In 2024, 74,000 tons of beef were exported from the UK.
Wow.
Right? And then we brought in 122,000 tons.
This makes no sense.
Right? At a lower welfare. Not held to our high standards. So our high standard beef is being bought by countries that desperately want it. And we are feeding our population beef that is from other sources that is not necessarily to the same standards as what we've got to do. Which then that also kills the climate narrative. If there's a climate agenda, it is sort of hit on the head, and people should really wake up to it. If there is 74,000 tons of beef being exported and 122,000 tons of beef being imported, there's a 48,000 ton of beef is all that we should actually be bringing in to bring the levels up.
Yeah.
Right? So someone's making money whilst another person's calling a climate narrative.
Yeah. I mean, it's just like what they're doing with all the land grabbing. I mean, again, funnily enough, shocker, Bill Gates is involved, buying up as much farmland as possible. Our own government are also buying up a lot of land to put like big carbon catchers or massive batteries in, again, in the pursuit of net zero.
Yeah.
And then they'll go on their private jet to COP26.
Yep. but it's the cow's fault.
Oh yeah, but it's a cow's fault.
But it's a cow's
because they
fault.
fart too much, even though they burp more than they fart.
Yeah. And there's a guy called I can't remember his name. There's a guy on social medias that did the perfect analysis of how methane from cow burps and farts breaks down.
I think I
Right.
might have seen that. I think I know which one you're on about.
and it is farm theory.
Yeah.
And it's a perfect metric of how it works and how it's something that symbiotically worked with our environment for thousands and thousands of years.
And then all of a sudden we can't do it anymore.
Yeah, they can't do it anymore. But a plane's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's some big like head scratching questions going to be coming out in the future. I can just tell. And there's lots of narratives that are going to be pushed to the side because people are starting to see the truth.
Yeah. Well, people don't want to. When you take an issue like farmers and inheritance tax, or I don't know, even indoctrination in education, and people, they want to go, oh no, let's not talk about them, whatever, blah blah blah. And then if you say something like, oh, actually, this is why, you're a conspiracy theorist. But then everything is all connected to the same things.
See,
it's all connected to Agenda 2030.
Everyone likes to throw that around, and I believe in finding truth. And when everyone starts understanding that some people dive deeper to find truth than others, and stop putting people in boxes, right? Because critical thinking is one of the most important things in my mind of everything going on in the world. And there isn't enough critical thinking going on. But there are people now starting to question stuff. BlackRock have got 100 million quid on the table to buy UK farmland. It's like they're expecting problems, right? It's come out of nowhere. BlackRock have also, there you can trace it, and I can't remember exactly the name, but they own a company that looks after assets, or asset management company. That asset management company bought 50% of a green energy company in the UK recently.
Wow.
Well, it gives you the clues.
Yeah.
They got 100 million quid to buy land, and they own 50% of a green solar farm planting company. They're ready to go.
Yeah.
And it's ironic at the moment that we're being told that we don't have enough energy.
Defiance Records brings the best music from the freedom movement. From Ramise's Never Give Up and Mad Mix's You're So Right, available as a double A-side on Defiance, to Raw Milk Conspiracy bringing back purpose to music with their latest single This Is England 2024 and their brilliant debut Misinformation Whore, available on Defiance Records.
We should have the right to know exactly to the compound what is in our food, what's in our air, what's in our soil. With farming, because obviously we can talk about pollution. And when I say pollution, I don't mean climate change and all that sort of stuff. I mean the crap that they've done to the soil. What have been your challenges with that? Because I can imagine that as a farmer, if anyone's going to...
Farmers are starting to notice yields are dropping.
Yep.
We've been keeping an eye on this in the last few years. I fortunately did a course in Korean natural farming, which is how to harvest and use microbes.
Wow.
So microbes are getting affected in a big way through everything that's going on. And that's not proven. That's from my visual and my experiments like independently. So I can't go and say anything factually truthful on that unless there was a multiple other amount of people that are doing the same thing as me. But everything we've done has been working. So what is happening from above is affecting microbes and, the microbiome of the soil. And, there's ways to fix it. It's not a problem, right? It's a problem short term, but it's something that needs to be identified, and that stuff needs to be stopping. But once it's stopped, there are solutions to improve it. I was speaking to a gent on the phone yesterday on a machine that can basically turn new compost into ready-to-use compost in about 10 minutes.
Oh, wow.
On the way it grinds it down and mixes it and stuff like that. So because it goes super fine, you can put it straight out on your fields. And they also squash out a lot of effluent out of things. So if you like pine, for instance, is part of what we get disinfectant from. So if you put too much pine out, you end up killing your microbiome, right? So if you squash the moisture out and remove the moisture and have that in a tank that can be separately sorted out, you can put the fiber and the carbon back out. So the big part of this is carbon. We keep getting told that carbon's bad. Carbon's everything.
Yeah.
Everything.
Nothing would live without it.
Nothing would live without it. We are carbon. Floor's carbon. Ceiling's carbon in here. Grass is carbon. Grass is what's called a soft carbon. Hard carbon, wood, right? People have been sort of falsely sold that carbon is bad. And it's one of the key elements in our
life.
existence. Yeah,
What can the average everyday person do to help out the farmers or to somehow go against this agenda themselves in their everyday life?
it's happening in a big way already, but find your local farmer. Find your local farmer, see what he or she can sell. You might be able to get lamb boxes, beef, vegetables, whatever anyone's dietary needs are. There's loads of apps and things coming out to help find farmers. Cut out the supermarkets. The supermarkets are ripping everyone off. So the average farmer at this moment of time is earning about the same that they were in 2018. The average consumer is paying 200 to 300% more on food. That is a joke, right? Part of what Farmers to Action is for is not fighting on just for ourselves, but also our consumer. We want the consumer to come out and stand with us and be with us, and we want to be able to serve them and grow them food. So a big part of this is the three main things that have brought Farmers to Action together is removing IHT for everyone. There's only 3.7% of the population that pay it, because anyone that's got too much money has got it in a trust, and then the other part of the population hasn't got enough money to pay for it at the end anyway. So there's only a small part that actually pay it, right? We want to protect our farms to be able to protect the right to grow food for people. Our second principle is fairness in food pricing, and that's fairness from the farm gate to the farmer and fairness to the consumer, right? We know the consumer's getting ripped off because we know how much we're getting ripped off and how much profit is being put on top of what we make. And then the third point of what has brought us all together is food security, which all binds those three things together. So anyone that is watching this, farmers are here for all of you, and we would quite like that to be circular. Something like the hashtag that we've sort of been putting out is our farmers, your food, but it's everyone's future. Yeah. And that's a one of the slogans we're working with. So another one we're working with is we are farmers backing Britain. We are trying to do this for everyone. So if any mainstream media is going to paint us to be the bad guy, because they always have. And this is why a lot of farmers find it hard to come out and to stand up for themselves, because we've been downtrodden not just for a few years. We've been downtrodden for best part of a century. Yeah. From everything that I've seen from my grandfather to my father to myself. My grandfather, his first 5 years in business, all his paperwork fitted in a little suitcase, right?
First 5 years.
First 5 years in business. Last year, myself and my father filled up a filing cabinet.
A whole filing cabinet. And was that just with 1 year's worth?
Pretty much, yeah. Wow. There might be a bit from the year before, but the general thing is we need to spend time on our land and time with our animals and, time nurturing and, promoting life, not spending 85 hours on the farm in a week and then do another 5 hours in the office.
Yeah.
So, there's lots of farmers that, at night don't get to spend time with their kids because they're having to do bookwork.
Do you have a lot of friends that are farmers as well?
Oh, loads.
Do you have friends that are dairy farmers?
Yep.
Do you know if they've come under pressure for any more feed additives, Bovaer or otherwise?
Not overly. I know a lot of them have come under pressure because of slurry storage.
Could you go into that?
So slurry storage is something that's been mandated in the last couple of years, that farmers have to have a minimum X amount of 1,000 litres that they must be able to hold for 6 months, especially in NVZ zones. So NVZ zones are where they are only allowed to put out a certain amount of nitrogen through the year because of risk to get into watercourses. But it's ironic and hypocritical for the government to do that when I have a very good contact in the fisheries of a lady called June, and she's up in Norfolk, and the government allowed, I think it was 6,000 tonnes of nitrogen fertiliser to be dumped directly in the sea.
Wow. I mean, that's just...
And that can be searched.
That's insane.
Now, a lot of farm slurry and stuff, which farmers are always to blame, every time, is spread on grassland, which works like a giant filter. Just like the tree works like a filter for carbon dioxide. Yeah? Now, in that, the problem with what nitrogen's getting into the watercourses is the inability of our water services to be doing their jobs properly. That is the bigger problem. Our water network, our country, we've just taken 538 million off farmers for IHT, which is going to cost them like 2.7 billion in order to get that through lawyers and all the crap. Then we went and gave 500 million to Brazilian farmers. And we've given X amount of money to South African farmers, and we've given X amount of money to Indian farmers. So we for some reason, our government is investing into farmers in other countries, but not us.
But it's not only just farmers. I mean, we've got billions upon billions to foreign climate aid. The government is purposefully trying to destroy the country. It
does seem that way. It very much does seem that way.
Almost seems like it's in preparation for something, do you think?
But it's all right. They've just signed up a 100-year deal with Ukraine to help rebuild it. But you've got to laugh, haven't you? It's getting so ridiculous.
You have to laugh or you cry.
It's getting so ridiculous, you've got to laugh. We just given X amount of billion to Ukraine when we could have fixed our water network, fixed the potholes in the average British road now is like going on a off-road rally, right? Because it's crap. We should be fixing our own country.
Yeah.
We should be investing into people in our own country. We should be investing into road networks, road workers, investing into the NHS. The NHS is falling to pieces. It wouldn't if you didn't just give 50 or 500 billion to Ukraine or whatever we've done it so far is the maximum figure, because none of us actually really know with all the backhand deals and things that go on.
No, and the money that goes into Ukraine, that doesn't stay in Ukraine. That doesn't go to what we're thinking it's going to.
No, not remotely.
It just
never
all
does.
Once it goes to Ukraine, it goes everywhere.
Yep. So the ones in charge need to go. It's almost like we need a whole new House of Parliament. And that might sound drastic, but we need good, honest, working people. I would advocate no parties. Just independent people representing their community, having a conversation. And I reckon there would be so much more that gets done. Because you haven't got those party alliances. But the red, the blue, the green, the orange, as far as I'm concerned, they're all the same.
Okay, so we are here at the Food and Farming Security event. So what does that mean to you and other farmers?
I can't necessarily speak on behalf of all farmers because not necessarily they all know what's going on. But the fact that people are having conversations is a beautiful thing. Yeah. Like, it's great. More of us need to talk. It's like politics is trying to divide us all apart. And we need to bring all communities together and start having these conversations. People wondering why they don't know a farmer is because they just never had that idea of going to find one. And then having those conversations and asking them what they do and why they do it that way. They'd probably be surprised that farmers are very friendly, even though we get like a bad press. We would quite happily take people for tours of our farms and explain why we do things. Being at something like this, I was invited along a few weeks back by Catherine that's putting on the event. And I said, well, what do you want me to say? She said, I'll just talk about what you're doing. And I was like, okay, yeah, I'll turn up and do it. And that's why I'm here. But I'm happy just to represent my industry in the best way that I can. Whether everyone agrees with what I say or not, I can't help that. But I'm still trying to do my part in the best way I can, promoting agriculture, promoting good quality, highly nutritious food with less chemicals on it, right, for our consumer.
Yeah.
And, there's farmers out there that would be like, oh, but, it's harder not using chemicals. It is. But you've got to go with what the consumer wants. Yeah. And everyone wants to be healthier these days. Everyone wants nutritious food. Everyone wants high quality food. And the best thing is what people buy is like a voting slip, right? When you go put a cross in the box for some political party, as far as I'm concerned, it means nothing. Where you put your money is the biggest vote and the most power that every individual has. So if you want organic, certified organic from a local farm, if you give your voting slip, which is that money, to that farmer, that is a direct vote for what you want.
Yeah.
Right? That is going to promote in his mind that he is doing the right thing. If a farmer then is using a lot of chemicals and he is not getting those notes passed over, he knows he needs to change his ways.
Yeah.
Right? The people of our country have all the power. They might not think they have, but they have all the power and everything. That energy slip of money, which is a voting slip for anything you want, whether it's a mobile phone, wasting your money on them, holidays, or good food. Like another optic is, if you go back to I think it was the 70s or 60s, someone said this to me, the average budget on food was 35% of a family's wage.
Wow, really?
Today's 15%. So people have not hoarding food in the same regard, but when everyone goes to somewhere like the south of France or south of Spain, in the Mediterranean, they go, oh, the food's so fresh and it's lovely, and I tried all these different cuisines and it's just so mesmerizing because the food tastes different. The food comes with that extra level of care, not in just the production of it, but in how they are, creating the art of what they're eating.
Yeah.
And, in this country, I think we've forgotten lots of our old ways of cooking.
Well, yeah. I mean, it just calls into question, what actually is food? Because, I mean, when you go to a nice farm shop and you can see all the beautiful veg out and it's all nice and plump and it just looks beautiful. Sorry, I'm looking at those crates over there. I'm getting quite hungry. And then you see all the meat. And you can tell it hasn't been pumped full of water, or you can tell it hasn't sat frozen somewhere for years on end and then sold or whatever. And then you go to the supermarket and you see tins of anything, really. You can get anything tinned. And it actually makes you think, what is really in that?
We got the British public, and, as people around the world, got sold convenience.
Yeah.
How do big corporate empires get going? They have got to make you something easier and simpler, right? And sell you that story for you to buy it.
Yeah.
That's basically pure capitalism. Take something, mix it up a bit, sell it as a better product.
Yeah.
Right? Now, that is basically taking away the skill of cooking. And I enjoy cooking. My other half enjoys cooking as well. She's definitely better than I am. I'm not bad, but she's definitely better than I am. But even cooking together, it's things that bring the family community together.
Yeah.
If you go into you see in the south of France and south of Spain, we always go for driving holidays, so we get to see big parts of countries. And you always see those families in the Mediterranean that are under the balcony, and there's 13, 14, 15 of them.
Yeah.
And they've all been cooking together. In this country, we've sort of lost those sort of family dynamics of everyone wants to move out as soon as they can.
Yeah.
And not appreciating being in the family
Yeah.
and spending time together. We all sort of talk about family first, but it doesn't necessarily sort of run that way. Everyone wants to escape it. I was fortunate, I live on the family farm with my family, so I see them all the time. And sometimes your mum drives you up the wall, but I love it a bit. So it's a way of saying that convenience has undone all of that for us.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, everything from microwavable meals to, microwavable meals, the fastest way to hide horse meat into mince. because that was done only like, what, 5-6 years ago?
I'm so glad I don't eat microwave meals anymore, but I did, and I'm just thinking about all the possible horse meat I've consumed.
So, but then again, horse meat's nice. I know some people don't like the idea of it, but
But the fact that it's in there without you knowing,
yes.
that's the issue.
Yeah, that's the issue. Like, if you had the choice and you're picking it for the
If
choice.
someone wants to go and eat horse, I mean,
Yeah,
but
well,
that's their prerogative.
Yeah, but like cheval in France is something that's eaten all the time. Over here, it would give the Dartmoor pony and the Exmoor pony a value, which means they would be looked after in a whole different way because they had a higher value, rather than just being left to their own devices. But a lot of the farmers have got to have the ponies because it's part of like the commons' rights and stuff like that. But that's a big part of this is truth of what's in your food. You can only really trust directly a farmer, a butcher that's buying direct from a farmer, and a greengrocer buying direct from a farmer, right? Effectively, no, like if you build a rapport with your butcher, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's breaking down those walls, asking those questions, and building relationships with people. Relationships that not necessarily are happening at the moment. But back to the convenience thing. People got so used to convenience, everything being made easier, rather than what is actually better for like a family dynamic or what's better for a community.
Or it's faster. We live in an instant gratification society where everything has to be right here, right now.
Yeah.
And it has to be the best of the best of the best. And it got to the point, I mean, because it originally started because we were trying to create ration packs and things like that for the war. But then we kind of, instead of going, right, okay, we don't need to do that anymore. So let's stop making things out of weird powders and putting them into packets that could last for decades. We don't need to do that anymore. We can have fresh. We're not at war anymore. And yet, the average UK citizen maybe the average slightly poorer UK citizen eats mainly tins, jars, ready meals and things like that because they've made it so cheap and quick and easy that of course everyone goes to that. But they do that on purpose because they know that that's exactly what you should not be eating. Yeah,
100%. Like, obviously, if you look at the ingredients on things before you buy them, if you can't pronounce something, it's probably not the best for you, right? If it's got funny numbers and stuff stuck to something, it's probably not good for you.
Phenol hydro something. It's like.
But if you go to jarred, like pickling or even like things like sauerkrauts, there should be like no extra ingredients in there.
Yeah.
Especially if you're buying from like organic shops. So there are things out there for people to choose from, but it's making that decision whether you want to put good food into your vessel, which is I treat my body like an engine, right? And I'm not going to put crap fuel in it.
Yeah.
I'm going to put good fuel in it. And, I'm not going out and preaching to everyone that, everyone likes fish and chips once, like every now and again or something like that.
Guilty pleasures,
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we're not like trying to preach that everyone is perfect by no means. But producing a cottage pie from like food grown in a really good way, it's got to be better than buying a ready meal from a supermarket.
It's like even beer battered fish and chips. If you really want to, you can do that at home.
There's a tutorial for everything now. Like most things you can do just like, trial and error.
Yeah.
It's way more fun.
Yeah.
Right?
Taste it. No, that's crap. All right, did something wrong there.
The amount of time I make things and just chuck things together and just see what happens, if it's wrong, you won't do it again.
Yeah.
But if it's most of the time, it's really good.
Yeah.
My other half's brilliant. She like pickles and makes things like chutneys. And homemade with the right ingredients are so much more amazing.
You can't compare it, can you?
You can't.
No, I remember my friend's mom. She had a plum tree, and they did like plum jam every year. Oh, it was beautiful, and it was like literally they just made it at home in their kitchen. They didn't do it officially. They just did it as a hobby. Best jam I've ever had on the planet, hands down. We'll never compete.
Yeah, well, exactly. But until people get away from this idea of convenience, and understand that convenience comes at a cost, that what's in that convenience, you will have no idea. Even if you go to the ingredients list, supermarkets have got absolute no reason or want to tell you the truth.
I was going to say, I mean, how assured can we be that even when you go to a supermarket and you read the ingredients and it's got all that crap stuff on there that you can't even pronounce, how do you know that there's stuff in there that they're not putting on the ingredients list?
The horse meat scandal is the precipice of that. right? It's not till someone had it tested, right, and found that it was in there. And I can't say that they're not doing it again.
I was going to say, like, how are we assured that they're not still doing that? How
Well,
long was it going on before?
They were doing it to get rid of horse meat. But all those horses still got to go somewhere.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be surprised if someone went and tested it tomorrow, that they'll quite possibly find it's in there again.
I kind of want to go buy some and test it. This just made me really curious.
Yeah. But as I said, like you can, if you want to buy beef, go to a farmer or a butcher.
Yep.
If you want to buy lamb, go to a farmer or a butcher. You know, and there's plenty of farmers now that are doing like lamb boxes, beef boxes, and they'll deliver them
Yeah.
to their local communities. Or some I know a guy from Devon that goes to London once every month, and he takes up 2 whole cows with him that are all in boxes, prepped, ready to go, and then just drops them off.
Wow,
Like,
that's
there's
really
people
cool.
out there doing it. You just got to find them.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's been so nice talking to you. Thank you for giving me some of your time.
That's right. You're welcome.
For more exclusive behind-the-scenes content, please be sure to subscribe to our Patreon. It really helps us cover the cost of any live streams, events, protests, or anything that we do. You'll also be seeing any behind-the-scenes footage and anything that we might be doing with Defiance Records.
Resistance GB's new series, 1,000 Words, has me, portrait artist Jake Fern, talking to some of the key figures in the movement. Half my brain concentrating on having a conversation, and the other half on making a painting. Do I succeed at either? You be the judge.